lucky to be mayor of Danville, and I'm lucky to have you all here. Do I have to do this? I did this last night. And so on behalf of City of Danville, we welcome you. I would like to recognize Senator Rick Girdler's with us, Senator, and also Representative Kim King. So that's enough of me. Let's get down to business, and I'll turn this over to Mr. J.C. Young.
Thank you very much. I'm not even going to use this. You can hang on to it. My name is J.C. Young. I've got a lot of familiar faces in the room. I got to recognize my member, Wayne Jackson from Mercer County. Thank you, Wayne, for coming. You got my email, didn't you? I did. And you're in the house, aren't you? Yes, sir. That's right. So thank you all very much. My name is J.C. Young, and I represent the Magistrates and Commissioners Association in Frankfort. The whole purpose of this is to apprise you of some information that we as association leaders have garnered through our contacts and through the media and through conversations and through legislative hearings, and to bring this information to you. This is the first time I've ever participated in anything like this. Before I go any further, I have to thank you very much for coming, because this would be useless without your attendance. And we hope to educate you tonight, and we hope to also inspire you and motivate you to get involved in this situation, in this issue. There's a lot of strong association leaders here with a lot of experience, and these guys are really good at reading the tides and the trends at the Capitol. And there's no secret that there's going to be a special session, right? I mean, the governor said it multiple times. There's going to be a special session, and as groups continue to prepare for that special session, and as we continue to prepare for that special session, I think it's important that we all share information. I think it's important that we communicate to you all, CERS and KERS members of the public retirement systems, what we know and what has rolled out. Thus far, throughout this, the only thing that we have concrete throughout this entire situation is the reports produced by PFM. Okay. PFM is a group that was hired by the state to conduct a financial audit, a strategic audit of the Kentucky retirement systems. Okay? We didn't have any choice to choose PFM. This was a state deal. They acquired it by RFP. PFM has produced some reports to some committees. That's all we've really seen. The governor's not rolled out a plan. The legislators haven't rolled out a plan, but we have seen the PFM reports. They're available online for everybody else to see. Those reports paint a pretty grim picture of public pensions. I mean, just to be candid, they don't paint, this is not puppies and rainbows. These reports are daunting. They're a little frightening. They put off a picture that shows public employees. It shows those systems kind of in the can a little bit, and it's not positive. So if I'm reading the trends a little and I see this PFM report, I have to think that legislators are going to try to react to that report. And that's the purpose of this, is because we do have a solution to combat the reports and to talk about and to carry. The possibilities amongst the legislature are endless. I mean, they really are. The systems could be positively affected throughout this process, or they could be negatively affected throughout this process. The employees could be positively affected or negatively. The future hires, the current employees could be positively affected or negatively affected. The possibilities are endless. And that's what we have to know. That's what you have to know, and that's what we have to work on. If it's negative if the legislature decides something in special session that's negative for current employees, it's also negative for cities and counties. That makes it harder for us to recruit and retain cities and counties, our talent, and the people in our communities. Throughout this conversation tonight, you're going to have some questions, and you're going to ask us, and we may not know the answers to them. And you have to understand that's just part of this process. We have a lot of the answers, but we don't have every single one of them. So I ask you to be patient and understand that this is a process. This group behind me, I'm really proud to serve with in this coalition. We've had some legislative victories amongst ourselves, but this is a really powerful group and a powerful lobby in Frankfort. But our strength really relies right here with you. They're not getting anything for coming here. There's no comp time awarded. There's nothing like that. I mean, just like you know, you're here on your own free will and accord, and we are as well, and the legislators are as well. So I want to exercise that and say that to you because I want you to know that these people are passionate about what they do, and they're convicted that we have the right ideas going forward. I'm going to introduce Brianna, and then I'll have everybody else introduce themselves. Is that all right? Brianna Carroll works at the League of Cities. I do not have a bio, but I'm going to tell you what I know about her. Brianna Carroll is convicted of this cause, and she's worked really hard on this legislation, on Senate Bill 226. And she's put her professional career at the helm of this, I would say. Just outside looking in. I don't work with Brianna directly. I don't work for Brianna. So, but just looking outside in, and I'm really proud of her work through it. And she's going to tell us about the legislation in Senate Bill 226 and the expectations of special sessions. Can we clap for Brianna, please?
Thank you, JC. I'd like to introduce the rest of the representatives representing some of the groups from our coalition. We have Vince Lang with the Judge Executives Association, Joe Bear with the Professional Firefighters Association, Shelley Hampton with CAECO. We have Nick Jellick with the FOP and Eric Kennedy with the Kentucky School Boards Association. First, I want to talk a little bit about Senate Bill 226 and what exactly that is. Actually, I want to stop. First, I do want to recognize the fact that we do have city and county and other elected officials in the audience. If you all want to raise your hand, we do appreciate you being here. I see PVA back there who's not raising her hand. Thank you guys for being here as well. So Senate Bill 226 started last year. We began drafting it right after the 2016 session, and it was finally introduced in February of 2017. So what that is a result of, it was almost 400-page bill, which took a year, as you heard, and we have 25 coalition members that represent employee and employer groups. One thing that started from 226, and the reason why now separation is so important for us is, as Governor Bevin was elected, we are now hearing that the state pension system is in a crisis, and for those of you in CERS or retirees of CERS, that doesn't necessarily apply to us. So we are pushing forward with separation, and the message of we are not in a crisis, we want to separate and maintain CERS as it is. If we rewind back to 2012, when there was a task force that was a collaborative task force made up of many we had testimony from employees and employers and all groups that resulted in Senate Bill 2 from the 2013 session, which created the hybrid cash balance system. Are any of you in that system, Tier 3? So we believe that stopped the bleeding. You'll continue to hear this messaging now that we need to stop the bleeding, so we need a 401k. Those of us in CERS, that is not what we need. The hybrid cash balance system did that. So when we look at CERS and you look at KRS, I'm going to give you an overview for those of you who don't know the system as well. So there's the Kentucky Retirement Systems, and under the Kentucky Retirement Systems is KERS, your Kentucky Employee Retirement System, which is your hazardous and non-hazardous, your County Employee Retirement System, which is your hazardous and non-hazardous, and then your State Police Retirement System. And they're all in individual trusts, but the systems pay the Kentucky Retirement System, or the state, to administer that system. And so when you look at CERS in particular, they are 63% of the entire membership of the Kentucky Retirement Systems and 73% of the assets. And the board makeup is another problem. With Senate Bill 2 from 2013, I think legislators and everyone understood that CERS was a majority of the membership as well as the asset base. And so we increased that membership and added 3 seats from the large employee groups, which would have been a seat for representing KSBA, a seat representing KLC, and a seat representing KCO. When Governor Bevin came into office, he reorganized the board and added 4 additional seats, which marginalized the CERS representation. And also, as I stated, that we are 73% of the assets. There were 0 CERS representatives on the investment committee, which was concerning. So in drafting Senate Bill 226, in the folders you all should have, there is an information sheet that just talks about the basics of the separation as well as the coalition. But on the back, many of the questions the common questions, we've tried to put on the sheet so that people can refer to it, but also so it highlights the fact that when we drafted the bill, it's a large bill, but it's only because we took all of the statutes from that have KERS and we mirrored them, so CERS has the exact same statutes. Nothing has changed in terms of the inviolable contract, the benefits, everything else. Everything that's in place now for KERS, it would be allowed for CERS. But it does create its own board, because the main objective and the only objective here really is just for CERS to be able to go out on its own and provide its own administration. So the new board is, there are 3 elected members of CERS on the KRS board. Those three CERS members would transition to the new CERS board, and 1 would be designated specifically for hazardous, which is not in place now. So you'd have 3 elected members, and then there would be 6 more members. 3 of those would be retirement, those with retirement expertise, and 3 of them would have to have investment expertise. And the requirements for the investment and the retirement expertise are already in place now, and so we believe that would make a great board. CERS has been on an upward trajectory since the pension legislation in 2013, which was the hybrid cash balance system. It put us on a sustainable, predictable path, which is important for employees and employers. We do expect to be fully funded by the end of our amortization period, which is 2043. We have an actuary, so the coalition, we have hired an actuary, and they are reviewing Senate Bill 226, but more so they'll be ready to be in place whenever the governor puts his recommendations on board as well. Governor Bevin, during the session, the bill passed the Senate. It started in the Senate, and it passed the Senate State and Local Government Committee unanimously. And we had several co-sponsors. Senator Girdler was one of them. And then the governor called and asked for it to just pause, hold the bill. And as we continued to receive more supporters of the bill, co-signers signing on, the governor then called the sponsor and said, "I need you to stop." So there was a press conference held, and the governor said we will continue to have this as part of the conversation moving forward. And we have had a meeting or 2 with their office. So we're not really sure where the governor is yet. They're studying it. But there's great legislative support out there, so it does keep us energized and keeps the momentum going. Separation means lawmakers can focus on the KERS problems. That's one thing that a lot of the legislators really like, is that, whenever they do any kind of reform changes for retirement issues, they're not just made to one system or another. They're made across the board under KRS, or only to teachers, and which we never really see that many done to teachers. But you see KRS sweeping reforms across the board. And CERS members' needs and our employers, they're different. Our funding level is different. We have always paid 100% of the contributions because it's in statute, and that does remain in statute within the language that we proposed. And it is in statute for the state plans as well, but obviously the legislators have the ability to suspend the statute to not have to pay 100% of the contribution, and we do not have that luxury. So we are just a different system, and I think the goal and objective of Senate Bill 226 and just CERS separation in general is to remove us, to put us on our own path moving forward, so that we're not caught up in, we need to save the pension system. We're the worst funded pension system in the country because that's not CERS. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the rest of the coalition members who want to add additional points, and then we will ask if the legislators want to provide a couple remarks, and then we'll also move into what we all believe is the most important part, which is the question and answers from all of you.
I'll just be brief because I agree with Brianna that the most important part of these meetings that we're having is the question and answer. Again, I represent the School Board Association, every locally elected school board in the state. And so our interest in this, which is similar to the other employer groups, is if I ask all of you all in your cities and counties, your fire departments and police departments, if you are having a hard time bringing on new employees now under the Tier 3 benefit structure that's in place, has that hurt your ability to bring people on? I can tell you that every single school district in this state is severely struggling and hampered in bringing on school bus drivers, kitchen staff, and support staff. We hear it in every district, and a big reason why is that, as I was saying to someone before the meeting began, all these years it has been a concept basically of, pay me now or pay me later. People go into public service, people go into working for the children in our schools all across the state, knowing that it is public service, and I'm probably not going to make the money that I could make in the private sector, but I have this great benefit of the retirement. The school boards out there have made all of the tough tax rate decisions and budgeting decisions all these years to make the full contribution towards their employee pension system and benefits. And we will continue to do that. However, some of the changes that have already been made, as Brianna was explaining, especially with the new current Tier 3 system that functions very much like a 401k already, have already hurt our ability to bring people on and bring the good quality employees that we need for the kids. We don't want to have even further changes made because we are just sort of lumped in and considered along with the state system that is in such worse shape, when if we were separate and only examined on our own with our funding level and the history of the contributions that have always been made, we don't want changes made that don't necessarily need to be made if we were on our own. That's our biggest interest in the proposal of separation.
With the FOP, the FOP is on board with this, and I can echo a lot with what the gentleman from the school boards is saying. I'm in contact with the Sheriff's Association and the Kentucky Association of Chiefs of Police, and they both, by far, in law enforcement in Kentucky, our number one issue is recruitment and retention. And we're really trying to maintain what we've got. And this CERS separation is by far the best plan that's on the table, the most viable plan that's on the table. It's got enough support that this legislation is possible. I've had a lot of conversations with folks, different members we've got. I used to police here a while ago. I know half the folks in this room. People are concerned. There's lots of unknowns, but what this offers is at least for us to hold on to a little bit of what we do know. And a lot of the rumors have been flying around about what's on the table. These other things that maybe it's coming from either the executive branch or wherever. A lot of these rumors, none of them are good. None of them are good. And the CERS separation is what we know. It's what we're used to. The benefit structure wouldn't change. The involved contract would stay the same. Everything, we would be able to keep a piece of what we do know and work towards the future. Hopefully, if we want to improve things, we can improve our level of funding, and then from there, that's the only means that I can see, that the FOP can see, for us to get there, is to maintain at least what we have now. And like Brianna was saying, there's this narrative out there that there's this big emergency, that everything's broken and everything's falling apart. And there may be elements of our retirement system that may look that way. But CERS, like everyone has said, the employees, we've all paid what we're supposed to pay. The employers have all paid what they're supposed to pay. And to give us a chance, what I feel, to manage our own business, that we'll be able to continue forward and to make this pension system a success.
Is that better? There we go. Again, I'm Shelley Hampton with the Kentucky Association of Counties. I think it's important, again, just to stress why we are separating. Why do we feel like we need to do that? And I think for the county representatives, one of the strongest things that we get back from our affiliates is that we feel like this is one of the best ways that we can help protect the employees that we have and the benefits that they have been promised, the benefits that they were told, you're not going to make as much as the private sector, but we do have a retirement benefit, and if you pay your part in, we will pay our part in, and in 27, 30, whatever it is, however long past 27 that you want to work, you will get your benefit. So they have made plans around that promise, around that commitment that was made. None of the changes that, if you look in the PFM report, and it's a lot to take in. It's half of it's over my head as well. But a lot of the changes that were made were not pre-funded, and we all understand that going forward. But none of the employees that pay into the system made those decisions. And so I think that for the county employers and the employees in those offices that deliver those services, the road crews that clear the roads when there's 10 inches of snow on the ground so we can all get to work and to school safely, the deputy jailer that keeps the bad people behind bars for us, the sheriff and the ambulance folks that come back when you dial 911, they answer that call and they come and they help in any way they possibly can. Those folks have made plans around the promises that have been made. They have paid in. CERS employers have paid in. It's in the bill. It's a big bill. I have it here if anybody wants to reference it, but it's in there. We will continue to pay our 100%, and we will not waver from that, hard as it is. And it has been hard in the past, but we made a commitment to folks who said, I will give my service to the public. I want to serve my community. And so that's one of the biggest reasons for county governments. And just a note about the Kentucky Association of Counties, we're not quite as homogenous as the League of Cities. We represent 10 elected offices. And just so you all know, 2.5 of those offices are not in CERS. 2.5 of our affiliate members, the PVAs, and the Commonwealth's attorneys are in the Kentucky Employees Retirement System, and the county attorneys have a foot in both, because county attorneys do some services and some of their duties are coextensive with state duties, and so they get a foot in both systems. So while we are fully in support of separation for our CERS members, that doesn't mean that we are not vested in what happens to the KERS members. So it puts us in a bit of a difficult spot to have those 2.5 members out there that are in the KERS system. But I think that's why our legislative committee voted to, as the overall goal for the special session, is to protect the inviolable contract. Because without the inviolable contract in place, I'm not sure what any of us have left, quite frankly. And so that inviolable contract is very important to us. It's very important to everybody on this panel, and I would think it's very important to everybody in this room that inviolable contract be protected. I think there's even more transparency with separation. We've been told by different folks at KRS that there's no commingling of funds between those 3 separate systems. And make no mistake, they are 3 separate trusts. Just because you have one board, that doesn't mean you have one system. That board oversees those 3 systems. And let's not forget the other systems that are out there. The Kentucky Teachers Retirement, that's another separate system. So that's 4. And the 5th one is the judicial form. And that one oversees all the ALC judges, circuit and district judges, Court of Appeals, Supreme Court, and it also oversees the legislators' pension plan. They just have their own separate investment boards. So even there, the legislators are not lumped in with the judges' investments. Those are two separate investment committees and two separate decision-making bodies. And so for any folks that say, well, this is a duplication of services, you're going to have another executive director, another board, that's correct. But like Brianna said, we cover that percentage of the administrative costs now. Most systems across the country do not spend this much that are a comparable size. They don't spend $22 million in administrative costs. So while we do not have the numbers tonight, we are working on those with an actuary to get the number on what that transition would cost. But one question that I would ask you to ask your legislators and anyone else that thinks that a 401k is definitely the way to go for future hires, what's the transition cost for that? Because that's not free either. There is a definite transition cost associated with that. And one example that we have found is the West Virginia Teachers Retirement Plan. They were in a defined benefit. They switched over several years ago to a 401k, thinking that that would be better for not just the employer, but the employees. They have switched back from a 401k to a defined benefit plan. And so there's a lot to think about. Legislators do not have an easy task before them. They never do in any session, but this one, you're talking about people's livelihoods. And so we look forward to continuing to work with these folks and to continuing to answering your all's questions. And I'll turn it over to Joe.
Thank you, Shelley. I'm Joe Bear with Kentucky Professional Firefighters, also a retiree, City of Ashland Fire Department under CERS Hazardous. So I definitely have a vested interest in this issue as well. Aside from everything else that's been spoken up here, we support it. We have the same arguments and concerns as the other ones. I have a couple other that I would like to address. The one thing that seems to be, it's just isolated with firefighters, that the majority of firefighters in Kentucky do not participate in Social Security. And in that, with the rubrics of going to a 401k, and not a defined benefit, we have no supplement with that. We would just have strictly a 401k. And I didn't bring it up last night, but when the cash balance legislation was going through the legislature in 2013, our international did a study that if going to a 401k at that time, if you retired at that time under a 401k and rolled it over into an annuity to a monthly benefit, to receive $3,000 a month in a retirement benefit, you would have to have over $1 million in a 401k. And I don't see any of us in here that would have that ability to do so. And really, when I reference $3,000, most, I think the average is about $2,500 a month. And so you wouldn't even have that. So that's our huge concern on that with Social Security. And in doing so, another argument is what it's going to create. It's going to create firefighters working and police officers till they're 55, 60, 65 years old. Frontline folks, and you don't want that. That's a disservice not only to the citizens but to the co-workers. And so I bring this up any time I get the opportunity. And secondly, it's been brought up that as far as the cash balance plan that was passed in 2013. There is a reduction in benefits in that, and we cannot take any further hits on a monthly benefit. The recruitment and retention is really hitting our cities with the fire and police as well. And third, the one thing that hasn't been brought up here is, I believe, is separation. It takes a lot of the politics out of it. We saw last month at the KRS board where the governor made those additional appointments in order to get some assumptions changed. And in doing so, they reduced the assumptions on return on investments, and they reduced the payroll growth. And in doing that, and it was unnecessary. You can look that they reduced our return on investments from 7.25 to 6.25. And they just put out yesterday that the returns this year were 13 plus. So where's the need to put those reductions other than to make the argument that it's unsustainable and we're going to have to go to a 401k, which is false. So, these are our concerns as well as everybody else's here. And I appreciate your being here as well.
I don't know whether my microphone, it's on now, Vince Lang. Former teacher, 3 years, so I'm in TRS. Former county judge executive from Hart County, 3 terms, so switched to CERS there. Worked at Revenue Cabinet, KERS. I'm back as the director of the County Judge Executive Association, CERS. And I also have another unique perspective. I think tonight I'm also elected to the KRS board. So I'm a board member representing KERS. I served 2 terms on the KRS board, elected by you all, CERS, and then this last time I'm in my 3rd year. I have 1 more year until I'm probably done. Joe hit on a lot of important points, and I think the whole panel did. The board has been diluted from the time I was first elected. The majority of the members were elected, and everybody worked together. I didn't see any infusion of politics. For sure, during Governor Fletcher's administration, the board was able to work, and never saw any influence or efforts by the governor's office to get involved with issues that were important to the trust. That changed somewhat with many of the board changes, as I think Shelley and Brianna have talked about, the CERS. We worked hard to get some CERS representation on the board, and it turned out basically many of the people that we submitted were turned down. They were not allowed to serve, even though the entities involved to try to lobby for that piece of legislation really thought they were putting the best names forward. Many times those names weren't paid attention to. Now, those that are elected have very little say. And Joe detailed just exactly what happened a month or so ago at our board meeting. We had an opportunity to make some changes, look at possibly phasing in some assumption rates, because those members that were not elected voted in a block. All these assumptions changed dramatically, and what it amounted to would be contribution rates for local government, school boards to go up dramatically. If these had been phased in, it would be much more workable. We didn't mention, and Shelley knows the numbers, and Eric talked about having trouble hiring bus drivers. I heard the jailer representative talk the other day. Christian County, one of the biggest jails, they can't get anybody to work in their jails at all. So as these contribution rates rise, cities and counties and school boards can't afford to put their employees to work. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You get that many people not coming back into the system, or you contract out, nobody is paying into the system, therefore you're going to have a larger unfunded liability. So I think it makes perfect sense. And I'm going to tell you, I've tried to keep separate from this issue as much as possible, because I'm on the board, and at the same time I represent the county judges. And by the way, John Settles from Washington County is in the room, and John's a great member of our organization. He's been a past president. He's been on our legislative committee the 15 years I've been representing the organization, does a great job. But I only give information to our body. They make the decisions. And Senate Bill 226 came to a vote last year by our membership. Our legislative committee voted unanimously to support that. Many times you get judges in the room, it's hard to get a unanimous opinion on anything, but the idea that this was studied, well thought out, and they all voted to support this separation means that pretty much it must have been a good idea. And as mentioned by the panel, it looked like, at least in the Senate last time, we didn't get Representative King, we didn't get a chance to get over to the House, but as far as all the conversation I had in the Senate, there were at least 30 to 33 votes there for separation. And I think the chances are good, but it comes down to the same thing that we talk always to our membership. We can be there and represent. I live in Frankfort, so I have a House member and I have a Senate member there. I can talk to them, but when you talk to them at home, it's a whole lot more important than for me to talk to them. So make sure, if you believe this is the right route to go, and the panelists all believe that, go back and talk to your legislators. They need to hear from you, and you know, hopefully we'll have, and I appreciate y'all's attendance today. It means you care, or you wouldn't be here. And it's always a tough vote. This is a tough situation. It's so complex. At one time, I was on 47 different boards, councils, or commissions, and nothing compares to being on this retirement board. As far as complexity of the issues, it's difficult. It's difficult for the governor, the General Assembly, the board, and the constituents. It's really hard, but the inviolable contract's important, and I think to keep the contract, separation's essential too. Thank you all for having me.
Comment.
Vince just said it right there. The inviolable contract is important. Separation, to keep the inviolable contract is important. I wanted to clean that up a little bit. The bill does not address benefit structure. It addresses separation. Okay? The other thing is, from a fiscal court perspective, we'd like to see the 2013 changes to allow them to work. You know, we went through this battle in 2012 and took tough votes. I know Senator Gerler wasn't there, Representative King was, and we went through this once before, and we'd like to see the 2013 changes continue to work. It's a 30-year plan we've given you in the last quarter.
Yes, and they are working. We will have 2 different actuaries that will show that the changes from Senate Bill 2 in 2013 are working. I do want to take the opportunity first, before we open it up to question and answers, to allow Senator Girdler, Representative King. I didn't see you there. Sorry. Representative Elliott, if you all want to come to the front, if you have anything to say, we can allow you all to speak before we open it up to questions and answers.
Or get with anybody, the mayor and all along. One of the reasons I supported co-sponsored this bill, the CERS is about, I've got this, says 74% of the total asset or the value of it. And I thought they ought to be able to have a say-so in it with a separate board. That was one of the reasons I did it. And then in caucus, we had talked amongst each other, and just about every senator in for it. But don't feel bad. Let me tell you this: you wasn't the only bill that got delayed. There was another bill got delayed. The state police was going to get $24 million and try to shore it up a little bit. So that was another bill that got there. And I think it all has to do with pension reform and doing it all at the same time, so that it can be appealing on each side as far as the things that I'm like JC, I'm here to listen. I don't have all the answers. You're going to know more about this than I am. A lot of times I was with a bunch of teachers last night in Lincoln County till 9 o'clock about retirement. I didn't think nothing about retirement till I turned 62 the other day, and I'm thinking about retirement too. Not today. I'm thinking about your retirement. So, but anyway, I hope to find out where a lot of you stand. I know there may be some opposed to it, but 99% of it I've heard has been positive. But anyway, we're here to learn, or I am anyway.
Thank you, Senator. Good evening. I'm State Representative Kim King. I have some constituents in the room, some former constituents, some of my great folks from Anderson County I've seen. It's always great to be with you all, and some that I've never served, but I do have my contact information. I sincerely would love to leave you my email address, home phone number. I really do want to hear your feedback on this. This has been my #1 homework topic for the entire early summer, fall, and will continue to be so until we come up with a great solution for our pension crisis. Just as one note, I mentioned it before we started, KET had a really good 1-hour program last night. If you weren't a nerd home watching KET Monday night like I was, you can find that on their website. Really good panel discussion, the pros and the cons, really did take it down to a level I think everyone could understand. It helped me on some ways. We will also have a PFM Pension Commission committee meeting on August the 28th. All of our committee meetings are open to the public. We will meet at 1 p.m. in the annex, and Lord willing, I will be there, and I would love to see all of you all and your family and friends and peers and colleagues there as well. That's when all of this will be public and that final report will be given. So I'd wanted to give you that date as well. As Senator Girdler mentioned, I don't have any answers. I honestly do not have a magic bullet to, sweep through and correct all of this. But I'm here to listen. I promise I'm an open book. I have your best interest at heart. I look forward to working with you, and I appreciate the invitation to be here tonight. And thank you all. Thank you all very much for your hard work on this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll leave my contact information up here on this small table.
Thank you. Well, I'm sorry I came in late. I thought maybe I wouldn't have to speak if I came in 30 minutes late, but it didn't work out that way. I'm Daniel Elliott. I represent Boyle and Casey County. And as Senator Girdler mentioned, he and I were with some retired teachers last night in Lincoln County for about, 3 hours, I guess, 2.5 hours. And I think the important thing to note about all of us is that we have an open mind about this process. We are here to listen. We're here to learn. And I will say what I have read about CERS, and I know I've gotten an opportunity to meet with Shelley very recently, and that was informative. It's been very positive in the sense of separation. I haven't taken a position on that issue, but I want you to know that I'm here to listen to you. I understand that you're concerned, and we have a lot of folks here. I'm not good at judging crowds without counting, but we have probably more than 50 people here, I would imagine. And, we're here to listen, and we're here to learn, and we're here to do what is right. But we do know that we have a problem. We have a severe problem, and we have to fix it. The can has been kicked down the road too many years. And now, we have to have the political will to fix it. And we need the public support in that. We need your input. But I have confidence that we're going to do that. I think we've got a working majority in both the House and the Senate. And we're not in leadership, so we're not privy to these conversations that are going on with the governor's office and so forth as to the specifics of the plan. But we all do have to vote for it in order for it to pass. So, and that's when you all come into play. So thank you for the opportunity to be here, and I apologize for coming in late. I was in court for the last 2.5 hours with a competency case, so that was kind of exciting. So thank you.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
I think we'll open it up for question and answers. If anyone just wants to raise their hand, and we can. Yes, sir.
I just got one question. I fully support the CERS separation. I appreciate everybody that was saying that the viable contract is important because it is. But my question is this: if CERS separates from the Kentucky retirement system, can later down the road, if our pension funds get worse, they're not, supposed to, but if they were to get worse, could this new board file bankruptcy? Because I know the state of Kentucky can, but could this new board file bankruptcy? And if they did, would that cancel out our contracts?
I'll speak up first to that issue. The new board that is proposed to be created itself, I guess the better way to answer that is the statute where the inviolable contract is codified into state statute. That language does not change in this bill, this proposal. And what it says is that for not only the state employee system, but for the CERS, it says basically in exchange for the work that you provide as an employee and the benefit that the public receives from that the benefits are a contract between the Commonwealth and all of the employees. So the party to the contract essentially is the Commonwealth, even for the county employee retirement system. And that does not change even in this bill that would separate the administrative structure and the governance of the pension system. It wouldn't change. So the way we look at this and interpret that is that, and one of the pieces of paper in the black folder has the chart of sort of before and after separation. Several of those possible scenarios, one of them gets right to your exact question. What if things go bad much further down the road? What could that look like? And the contract protecting the benefits would not change. The new board could not declare bankruptcy. County and city government and school boards There has never been a bankruptcy of any of those in Kentucky history. Even if it is remotely, technically a legal possibility, there still would be no way for any of the employers to essentially not provide those benefits and stand behind the contract. That really wouldn't change from what the statute would provide now.
So, adding on to what Eric said, if you get really bored and you want to read through the 400 pages, Section 52, page 169, is the section that will require the contractual obligations for the employers to be funded by, or I'm sorry, it requires the CERS employers to fund the system. And so one question that has been brought up is not so much can the board file bankruptcy, but what if a city files bankruptcy, or what if a county files bankruptcy? And it's just as what would happen now. It's a pooled system. The only time it would essentially fall back on the state is if the state dissolved every single county and city throughout the entire Commonwealth. So it's just, but it's essentially exactly the way it is now.
So the state would still have responsibility ultimately for it.
If
Until there was a separate board.
if every single employer within the system was dissolved, that would be far worse than the bankruptcy.
Before that should ever happen, as it is a contractual obligation of the participating employers, and as you have a board to enforce those contractual obligations, or a private party could do it, I presume, by lawsuit as well. But my question essentially is, does this new board have the same authority as the existing state board to compel contributions as may be deemed appropriate by the board, by the new board?
So the way the bill was drafted was that they would have just as much authority. They have the exact same authority as what the KRS board has now. Obviously, we are unsure of what the final bill will look like during the special session, but the bill that we drafted has the exact same. They're able to hire their own actuary. They would hire their own investment managers, and they would be able to make those decisions as well.
My concern goes more to the collection end of it, because the state has the power, the authority to withhold funds or grants or anything else if you fail to make the required payments. And I guess while you have the statutory authority to administer the program, what teeth do you have with participating members who may struggle to pay this or that?
So, Section 12, page 51, requires 100% funding from those employers, from the CERS employers. Should they not pay their bill, there is actually language that's in current statute that's only specific to CERS that would allow the board to seize assets or kick them out of the system. Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
I was asked a question, and I said I would ask this distinguished panel this evening. I'm still learning how all of this is administered, but with the new board, will it go through the treasurer's office as well as a final administrator, or no?
No, ma'am. The way we drafted the bill is it's created as a new board, just as the KRS board is out there now, and this treasurer does not have a role in that. Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important to note that Brianna keeps saying, and rightly so, the bill we drafted. The reason she keeps saying that is because we don't know what the actual language will be. This bill was drafted in the 2017 session and voted on back in February, March. We are all working on your all's behalf to get all of the provisions that are in that bill into whatever these folks vote on in the special session. That is out of our control, but that is why they want to hear from you. You heard all three of them say, "I want to hear from you." They see us all the time. They're probably so tired of looking at us again up here. But they want to hear from their constituents. They take to heart that they represent you, and they want to hear from the employees. They want to hear from the members. And you need to let them know how you feel about separation, how you feel about the inviolable contract, if it's important to you or not, and what your expectation of them is. But again, she's referring to the bill that we drafted, and we are working really hard to get all of that in there. But at the end of the day, it's up to the legislators to decide what will be in the final bill. There are no guarantees that what we are talking about tonight is going to definitely be in the bill during the session, but we are working really hard towards that. But we've got to have your all's help, and they do too. They want to know. You can go in their office and they'll tell you, well, you know, Shelley, on whatever topic. Nobody from back home has talked to me about that, so I can't really help you out on that. And that's understandable because they're talking about who they represent, not me. So they've got to hear from you.
What Shelley's describing is not unique to this bill. That's just that's the legislative process. You know, we represent various groups of constituents. You know, we're in Frankfurt, and you know, we try to educate them on our issues. Like with the police, I try to educate them on the issues, let them know what's important to us, and then as the legislation is crafted, we try to help guide that through that process. And that's what we will continue to do until there is a final product. We will try to make sure that you know, everybody here has their needs met as they were in that draft of the bill. But it all plays into you all. We represent groups of constituents, but you all out there are the constituents. You all are the ones that go to the voting booths and vote in your whatever districts. And so you all are the ones that they ultimately listen to. And, you know, you have a voice collectively. You just need to use it. And I encourage you to do so.
I think to add on to what Shelley stated as far as contact your legislator, contact them often, too, through this whole process. And when you contact them, not only tell them that you support separation of CERS, but tell them you support separation of CERS with no changes. And we want this piece in there, all of it. You know, if sometimes it happens where things get watered down, or you know, it may go in one way and look completely different by the end of the process. So we don't want to be coming back here in another month or so saying we don't support that piece of separation legislation. We want this piece of legislation in there with no changes.
There are so many discussions out here, and I think the inviolable contract comes up so many times about benefit changes. We're going to have to work longer, or we're going to cut our benefits. Talk about this legislation, special session, and statutory changes that can be made to the inviolable contract. What I never hear, and I gave you the whole litany of all the jobs I had to teach her all the way through since our early teens, but I am not an attorney. But one thing that's not mentioned is Constitution. Section 19, I'll just read one sentence in the Constitution to you. States, no ex post facto law, any law comparing the obligation of contract shall be enacted. So my interpretation of that is if you have a contract, it would take, in my opinion, a constitutional amendment to make that change, because there is that in the Constitution. So it makes Kentucky stronger than many states. You talk about, and there's been a lot of discussion before, and I've heard, well, this city out in California has taken bankruptcy, and so there is no, you know, the inviolable contract did not hold up there. In that case, in that 2 or 3 of the cities I followed the law, they didn't have any opportunity. Their constitution forbade them from raising any more revenue, so that was their only alternative. In the state of Kentucky, as I said, I worked at revenue. I think there's 640 different taxes in Kentucky. So it's not that Kentucky doesn't have the ability to raise more revenue if it went to court. My opinion is that this contract will hold up, and there'll be tough decisions to be made at that point. Hopefully that'll happen before then. I hope it doesn't go to court. I hope that everything gets resolved and that's not an issue.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a model anywhere else in the United States? Has another state tried this? Do we have anything else we can look to for success or challenges that someone else has faced?
In terms of separation, usually you're seeing consolidation, but that's typically in situations where the state is paying benefits or payments for the municipal and county benefits as well. There is, and recently New Jersey was trying to separate their police and fire system. One really good example that we just heard about is when you look at Illinois, that has a system that's a state system that's in terrible shape. I mean, you always hear Illinois referenced as one of the worst, right, along with CERS. But their municipal plan is in great shape. So there are great examples of where the state system is in very poor condition, but the local municipal county plans are in better. So not too many break-offs, because I think they're all either just city retirements or municipals already formed. But New Jersey just recently did it as well.
I think it's important to note too that you kind of referenced it there, that there are no state dollars in our pension, in our system. So that's all we're asking is, let us manage our own money, let us manage our own our own retirement system. You know, because a lot of these that you've talked about have state funds in them. CERS does not. It's strictly the employee and the employer.
I saw, yes, ma'am.
Playing devil's advocate,
Okay.
what would the opposing side say of why we should not do this?
Great question. What we tend to hear is you're gonna have a duplication of retirement systems. That's always out there. We're gonna create another retirement system. For us, just as Joe referenced, the state does not appropriate any funds from their budget to the CERS system to pay the ARC, the actuarial required contribution. However, the state has the KERS plan and the state police retirement system, so they pay KRS a portion of the administrative expenses. And then there's the teacher's retirement plan that they pay for. And then there's the legislative and judicial forms of retirement that they pay as well. So there's already a duplication of retirement administrations out there. So when we've been hearing this criticism that, oh, you're going to create another duplication, another form of bureaucracy, for us in CERS, it's not. We are paying KRS to provide the management, and we're unhappy with it. And so just like if you were a private employer or if any employer, if you're not happy with that work being performed, you're going to move on. And so we firmly believe that we can manage it better, and we can probably do it more cost efficiently. There is in terms of investments, although they are in separate funds, they will lump monies from some of the different funds, so CERS fund and a KERS fund, and they'll make a large investment together to pool the money to try to help KERS receive more on the investment return. And so that is an issue, I think, for KERS in terms of losing that advantage. But then, does that mean it's a CERS subsidy? I mean, I think it's an issue when you look at the fact that counties, school boards, cities, and the other employers within the system are paying 100% of their contributions, and they are not getting any benefit. And so from KERS or being under that system. So that's really, it's really make a long answer.
Brianna,
Sorry.
would you just briefly talk about the transition plan? I think a lot of people are worried about how we're going to move from one to another.
Yeah, so one thing, as we've originally, the bill draft was an immediate separation, but we recognize that several things are going to take a while, and that's some of, as I referenced, the joint investments. So what we provided in the language that we drafted was an immediate separation and to form the board, and you could hire your skeleton employees, but you have an immediate separation so that the board is formed, so that governing decisions can be made. And then after that, there is a period up to 4 years where everything else will be decided upon. And that could be when your benefits managers come over, or if you decide there's also the option to outsource some things. But it provides a 4-year period, and there is a joint consultant that is to be hired between CERS and KRS, because there are several things, as I've stated, 73% of the assets are CERS, and so who owns that building that they're housed in? Well, who owns 73% of the computers in there, and so on. So there will be a joint consultant hired to help transition through that 4-year period, and that's really just to make sure that there is a smooth transition for employees, for retirees, for everyone that's having to deal with the systems. No more questions? Yes, sir.
I do appreciate the legislators being here, and all of them saying they're willing to listen. They want to hear from constituents. I had a meeting at lunch today. I had 12 employees, mostly department heads and supervisors. I was amazed at how little they know about separation, about the system. They don't know the KRS, CERS. They didn't know if they were tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3. It's so. Having said that, how are these people that don't understand and don't know going to be able to contact their legislator and talk intelligently about a separation bill unless you all, somebody puts forth some kind of bullet point or some kind of elementary, I mean, you all live this, you know it. And Vince knows that I've been around a lot and studied this a lot, so I feel like I know quite a bit about it. But the general rank and file of CERS do not know, that they just know this very shallow, if at all. So how are we going to get the points out if we are pushing for separation, which I think most of us agree with? So there needs to be something that can be handed out to the rank and file.
So that is very true. I asked someone which system are you in, which retirement system are you in? Are you in CERS? They said, I'm in KRS. And I was like, oh, okay. So that is the whole reason, the crux of why we're having these, our road show, CERS Separation Road Show. Last night we were in Jeffersontown and had over 100 people there. But obviously those aren't all of the employees. So we are sending out to each of our memberships and hoping that the messaging that gets out is then trickles down to all of the employees out there as well. I mean, we're trying. We have all of our social media. We're doing mailings. We had a little commercial for a while. But we're sending it out to all of our membership, and obviously those are the managers in most cases, and so we're encouraging all of them to send it out to their membership as well.
And we too at the county level, we are developing that very thing, Judge Settles. We've got something coming that's a little more in the weeds for when we go and see these 3 folks, and when we go and can talk and have time, because as you all have garnered and you already knew, this is one of the most complex issues that we could ever bring up and try to sit down and talk to someone that has no idea, that doesn't live and work in the bubble that we do. And so we've got one that's going to be a lot simpler, a little more to the point for those employees. But we don't have your department heads' email addresses. We don't have your employees. And so we are going to be pushing that out to our 1,500 members and urging you all, just like you did, just like I know your area development director has already called all his folks into a staff meeting to sit down and talk to them and say, here's where we're at. There's a lot of rumors flying. Right now, the fear of the unknown is so panicky, and I don't think I'm being dramatic. The city of Louisville lost how many to retirement just 2 weeks ago? 32, 96 police officers are eligible. We're on track to lose 25% of the sitting jailers that are in office right now. There are 25% of the teachers in Fayette County, where I live. We all start school tomorrow. 25% of teachers going into those classrooms across the state are eligible to retire now. So if the rumors that they're hearing, they're going to take our sick time. Well, fine. Then what's going to happen there is they're going to start taking that sick time, and you will not find enough subs to take the place and to take the quality place of those professional teachers that are going in those classrooms every day right now. So you look at Christian County, that jailer right now, he's got 38 positions that Christian County jailer cannot fill, and that's with the hybrid cash balance. At least he has a little bit of an edge over a private employer in Christian County. But if our benefits match the exact same as the private sector, and you can have an $8 an hour job in a jail where you are going to get hit, you're going to get spit on, you could get physically hurt, or you can go to the private sector and not endure all that, and it's the same benefit, which one are you going to pick? Which one do you want your wife or your daughter or your son to choose? And so these are not easy jobs, they're not glamorous jobs, but these people have a commitment. And so yes, Judge, we will be pushing that out to you all. The problem is this is an evolving thing. The rumors that we heard last week are different from the rumors that we're hearing this week, so we need you all to be engaged. And like Joe said, don't just write one letter tonight that we're going to give you to write to your legislator. We need you to stay involved. We need you to follow the hashtag #FreeCERS. If you're on Twitter, Facebook, call us, email us, check our websites. But we have got to have your all's participation. But we do not have mayors that are in the room, county clerks that are in the room. Folks, you've got to pass this on to your employees. So we will encourage you to take the tools that we give you and sit down with your employees and let them know what we do know. But we'll be getting that out to you all so that you can explain that.
That's kind of what I wanted. You asked how is everybody supposed to know? Well, those of you out in the audience now that know this and understand this, talk to your coworkers, talk to everybody, talk to your neighbors, talk to your family, talk to them about it. And as that starts to spread, refer them. If there's questions that they ask you that you don't know, you can contact us. I know a lot of the police officers and sheriffs call me. That's half my job now, is on the phone explaining how this stuff works to folks. And I don't mind it. I want to do that because once that person I talk to understands it, they can go spread that out to about 10 other people. And each of those 10 people can spread it out to 10 other people. So everybody out here that understands this, then talk to your coworkers, talk to your neighbors.
Are there more questions? Yes, sir.
When is the next committee meeting? In the annex, was it August 28th?
Yes, August 28th at 1 o'clock. Yes, sir.
Has Governor Bevin made any recent statements as to the state maintaining and honoring the pension system for its retirees? Or may he do so at the upcoming Governor's Local Issues Conference?
He put out a Facebook video.
Yes.
And he said that we have an obligation to retirees.
And so to the best of our ability, we will try to make that obligation to the best of our ability.
No mention made of current employees in that
No.
statement.
I would like to add, there have been some rumors that, as far as maybe trying to test the waters as far as violating the involved contract, and we're all aware of those, and this is all the more reason, get us out of this mess. Let us govern our own, let us manage our own, and leave us alone.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there anyone else you need to call on?
No, you're good.
Of course, we have the local issues conference coming up in Louisville next week. Lord willing, I plan to be there on Friday. Will any of the sessions be talking about this? Is there anything I can attend there on Friday? This won't be part of the conversation.
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Can I how many are in CERS? Raise your hand. How many of you are in KERS?
Do you have time? Does anyone have time in both
both?
systems? That's
Okay.
a really fun thing.
How many of you all?
You
How
do?
many of you all are in hazardous duty? Wow. Okay.
So I do want to clarify this for you or anyone else who would have time in both systems. Currently, because they are separate trusts, separate systems, if you retire and you have time from both systems, your time is collectively added together, but you receive two different checks. It's the exact same. The reciprocity between the systems, that language all is maintained within what we drafted, so no one would be penalized. Are there any other questions? Yes, sir.
Where can I find a copy of the bill that you're proposing?
Oh, www.lrc.ky.gov.
I've already got a prize, I've got it.
Okay, well, there you go.
But tell
For
the
anyone
rest of
else, lrc.ky.gov. And under the 2017 regular session, you click on Senate, and then you'll see 226. It's beauty. I love it.
I'd like to add, as a representative, as an employee, I think you probably hear me anyway. As a representative employee group, we looked at this, numerous members of our board sent it to our attorney, sent it to the international, and with one of the main reasons was what does this do, if anything, to the inviolable contract? It does absolutely nothing. It retain all the same protections. It's identical. All we're doing was we're taking CERS out from under the governance of KRS and sitting over here with its own board. That is it. There's no changes, no increase. Because I even had some members say, well, let's try to go for some increase in benefits. No, we want what we have now, and we want to sit it over here, and we want to manage our own system.
Again, that's what you're proposing.
Correct.
But that could get changed.
So, yes.
Have you discussed the continuation of health benefits and how that might continue as unchanged or possibly change?
Great question. No, so I was most proud when the firefighters sent it to their international and they said, we don't have any problems. I was like, oh my gosh. So in terms of health benefits, so right now KRS participates in the state health exchange. So what we did within the language is to allow CERS to bid on the open market, but also participate in the state health exchange if they would like. The key there is that the benefits have to be, just as they are now, equal to current employees. So that maintains the exact same language, but it does allow for the competitive pricing. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Under the CERS separation, will the tier 3 people, will that change in any way? Will that tier just stay the same? They will continue?
So under our bill draft, tier 3 is the same, and that's really the messaging moving forward. After we get through with question and answer, we'll talk about that messaging, but that's really what we want to make sure is maintained for the special session, the bill that comes forward, because we firmly believe that the creation of tier 3 stopped the bleeding, and it put us at a predictable, sustainable path moving forward. So that is something we definitely want to maintain, and we don't want to move into a 401k. Because, as CERS employers, we know the retention issues that we have and the recruitment issues that we have. And to be forced in a system under the state plan where they don't know necessarily what our payroll growth is, as we saw during the board meeting at the last one when they tried to put us at 0 and we weren't. They don't know. And so it is important for us to be able to have that flexibility, because the one thing within that hybrid cash balance is the flexibility to be able to provide our employees with some form of a benefit so that it is shared rather than just a straight 401k. Yes, sir.
I'll point out just on the messaging. First of all, I think we collected some emails. Hopefully we'll keep the word out, because this could be ever changing even in 5 days.
This is Chris Bartley with the firefighters.
Did the lobbying for all the state firefighters. So basically what you're looking at is keep the same benefits. When you're asking your legislator, that's what you gotta maintain. Maintain current benefits. Don't want any changes to the bill. And if there is any meaty crap that goes on, then we are supposed to be able to get the word out to you to contact. So it's about engaging here, hopefully spreading the word, getting some contacts. We've got our own firefighter union page for the union members that are constantly in communication with each other and sending feedback. And then I think every organization's got that. So it's just constant messaging back and forth. And it's going to be a long process, a long fight, and it is a fight. And I was going to hit on what she just mentioned. My brother right there in the red shirt is in the tier 3 for sure. He's going to a 401k in the governor's wing. And it's not right for his and his family what he signed up for, plain and simple. And for risking his life and doing up this to citizens, it's not right. So there has to be a separation.
Are there any other questions?
Just a slight response to Representative King. She can't hear you asked if there was going to be anything on the agenda at the Governor's Local Issue Conference, and I don't think there is necessarily on the agenda, but all the affiliates are having membership meetings, and it's going to be a topic, I guarantee everyone. I know mine, and JC, I know it's on his group, so he'll have plus 150, 200 members. I've got 78, I think, that are signed up, and we're going to get the word out more and more to our members. And so it's not specifically on the agenda, but there will be a lot of discussion.
The Commissioner of Local Government, and their staff sets that agenda.
Well, I'm scheduled to be there at 10:30, so if something comes up, there's my email address.
Tink you.
Just let me know if there's something.
Any other questions? Yes,
Brianna,
JD.
I'm JD Cheney. I'm the Deputy Director for the League of Cities. These guys have done a great job, and they knew I couldn't go one full meeting without talking. Judge, what the cities in Kentucky are doing, almost every single city in Kentucky that's participating in CERS, in order to educate the other council members, and in order to educate their employees, they're enacting resolutions to send to their legislators in support of this separation bill. And it would be a tremendous help to see county fiscal courts and county commissions and school boards do the exact same thing. That way you show a full support of your legislative body in making that decision. So the league has a template. You're welcome to call us. We send it to you. You can tailor it to your city or county, school board, whatever you want to do. But I think that would help a whole lot to see your court take that action.
Any other questions? Okay, so the next thing we want to talk about is in your folder, there is a contact sheet that had, for depending on where you're located, we included all of the legislators who were invited to this, so assuming that your legislator would be on that sheet. It includes their Twitter handle, their phone number, their email address. Is that it? I think that's it. And so one thing that is important is sometimes one form of communication could be overlooked. So missed a phone message or missed an email. So we do encourage you to use all forms of communication and to contact your legislator. There's also a note card in there. So what we have done is if you write on the card, the note card, if you write your message, and in the return of the envelope, if you can write your address, we can look up if you don't know who your legislator is, but if you do, write their name on the front, and we will deliver it to the Capitol for you. Handwritten notes are important. And so that gives us another form. That's 4 options there for you all to reach out, each of you to reach out to your legislator. And one thing we want to make sure is that it's not just support separation, but maintain the structure of CERS and support separation. That's very important for us to make sure that we're not just saying separate CERS, but that to maintain the structure of CERS.
Just a clarification, so if you write your address at the top corner, we will make sure that we find your legislator.
Yes.
If you don't know who it is.
If you do not,
your address and your name at the top corner, like it's a return, and then we'll stamp it for you.
or if you know who your legislator is, write their name on the front, and we will deliver them to the Capitol for you. So that's it. After you finish writing out your note cards, if you need pens, let us know. You can set them on the table right here, and we'll make sure we'll deliver those for you. And we will be around if you all have any other questions. Thank you so much for being here.